Hey Brick Maniacs, welcome back to another Designer Studio episode. I have Brennan joining me this time around because we have the F4F-3 Wildcat. This one's specifically based off of the Wake Island Marines. Tell me a little bit more about this model.
Well, it was a pain to build. Mostly because of the sand blue, but I think that really paid off. It really gives the model that perfect early war kind of Navy look to it. It was definitely interesting as well because you get a lot of pieces in so many other colors. You've got all these rounded pieces. You don't have a lot of that in sand blue. So it's a lot of sharper angles to try to mimic this roundness to it. So it's kind of trying to create, okay, can I use these slopes to slowly, gradually create it rounded. Though you get a bit of that on the bottom. Wheels were a ton of fun to make.
Yeah, that landing gear
took a while.
Interesting.
Yeah, there were about 3 or 4 different redesigns that went on to make sure that they were sitting in the right spot and actually fit up into the cockpit there,
Which
or
that's
into,
pretty
into
cool.
the fuselage. Yeah.
That must have been satisfying to finally get down.
Oh my goodness, you have no idea. It was a great time. And so, we've got that. We've got fully functional landing gear, and they lock in place once you put them back down, which is nice. Once I get them back down. Goodness. So we've got that. Get on there. Perfect. We've got some new takes on the guns.
I love how they're embedded in the wings. That looks really cool.
Oh yeah, because we've always had oh, they're stuck on the end, or they're just kind of sat there. I felt like I really wanted to get that staggered look with the angled wing, and I'm like, the only way you can do that is embed them in there. So that was a lot of fun to do. And I'm loving the way we went with obviously the Wake Island, so you've got to get the early war stars with the roundel, and you've got your early war rudder.
Which I love that's brick built.
Here. Yeah. I was thinking about it for a while. I'm like, should I do this with stickers? And I was like, no. No,
yeah, I agree.
No, you gotta go with the brick build. Just makes it look more authentic. So that was a lot of fun to build. The plane itself, as you can probably see, is very tubby. This was the U.S.'s primary Navy and Marine fighter at the start of the war. It originally, I think in '37, lost out to the Brewster Buffalo, which if you don't know what that is, there's a reason for that. But when it was contracted, they're like, okay, we'll keep working on it. And eventually Grumman came back with the, I believe it was the F4F-2 model, and they're like, okay, no, this is so much better. Get rid of the Brewster. Let's work on this. And so this thing would slowly get more and more updates throughout the war. It would get more guns, which instead of the 450s, but the Marines and Navy pilots actually didn't like that so much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you actually had the same amount of space in the wing for ammunition, but 2 extra guns.
Spread across the guns.
And so now you've got less firing time, which you don't need much of when the Japanese don't have self-sealing fuel tanks. They just go up and smoke. It's great. I mean, it's not great. It's absolutely awful. Let's just be clear about that. But, yeah, so these things were just kind of tweaked and changed throughout the war. Early on, you've got, for example, Jimmy Thatch putting together the Thatch weave with this thing, which is, okay, we can't outperform the Zero. What do we do with it? Okay, basically, if there's 2 of us and he's diving in on us, we're going to weave in and out like this. He's got to commit to one plane. Right. And then once he gets on this guy, I literally come around, shoot him down. And if I've got one on my tail, then he circles back around and helps me out. So it's basically, it's unbeatable for 1941 and 1942.
Right, if you can get yourself in that 2-on-1 situation, you've got the advantage. Right?
Exactly.
Well, and obviously the story of Wake Island itself kind of ending in tragedy, but definitely a hard-fought and heroic battle. And so something that I think has just the amount of, first of all, the amount of various jobs that everyone who was on the island had to do. And then the fact that they just kept losing planes, but still flew up to meet the Japanese for, however long the battle lasted.
It lasted for a couple of weeks there, which when you've got, a carrier or 2 of Japanese planes and, ground troops attacking this island, and it takes you 2 weeks to take out a bunch of Marines with about 10 planes, you feel like they realized at the moment, this is going to be harder than we thought. Because these guys are nuts. Mm-hmm. And that played to our advantage. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's absolutely amazing hearing the stories of bravery and just intense, we're not going to let this beat us.
Right.
And the down to the last bit.
Quite literally.
Literally, yeah. I mean, one of the reference photos I used for this, it's actually a very tragic and kind of sad thing to look at, which is just a bunch of these, especially this one, Henry Elrod's plane, stacked up on the beach after the Japanese took the island. It's just a bunch of them laid out for scrap, and it's just, as someone who loves aircraft, it breaks my heart.
Yeah, right.
Just to see that bit of history just kind of lost to, well, war. But war's war. That's kind of it.
Which, what a cool translation then to be able to bring it back to life via the Lego medium and make it available in kit form through Rickmania.
Exactly. I love to get to show these kinds of things off to people because it keeps the history alive. It means that it doesn't get forgotten. Even if the kids are like, I don't really like reading books. Well, great. I've got something better for you. So.
Well, and once you build one of these models, usually you want to dive into the history a little bit and learn more about it. That's part of the reason we do these videos, so that you're able to learn a little bit more about the kit that you bought. So, speaking of which, before we jump over to the minifig portion, is there anything else in the kit that you want to show off? I know we got a gun sight, we got a printed radial engine. Let's go through some of those elements.
So, we've got the same gun sight that we had on the Air Cobra. I don't know how well you can see that there, but I figured we'd stick that in there because that's actually always a lot of fun.
It's like a fun play feature. Literally flying it around, you can line your minifig up.
Exactly, it's super cool. We've got the stickers on here. Obviously, the early war roundels, and then it's kind of hard to see in here, but if you can get that shot there, there's a little radial underneath that prop that we tried to get in there to really give it that look. So. What I originally thought was, I want to build it into the engine, and that got so like space intensive that I couldn't get the thing to close up very nicely.
Sure.
And so it's like, okay, so we can't do that. So instead, let's just print it on a disc, and it looks nice. I'm really happy with it.
I like those printed details because they're almost like build enjoyment details, like literally while you're building the kit. It's something fun to be able to see when you're like actually building the engine submodel, putting it together. It's fun to have that kind of printed element, even if it's not necessarily obvious on the display. You know it's there and you get to see it while you're building. And that's just kind of a fun thing that makes the experience a little bit more enjoyable, I think.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we've got the printed props, which is nothing particularly new, but it's nice.
Yeah, good details all around.
It was a good time.
Excellent model, the F4F-3 Wildcat. Anything else you want to go over on that before we turn over to the pilot?
Not entirely sure. I suppose that if you've seen the Hellcat, that was basically this, but after we captured a zero and basically made it better. This one does. Oh, I forgot to mention. This one doesn't have the classic Grumman stow wing look. I love doing that. It doesn't have that just because this is very early war. They hadn't quite figured that out yet. They figured that out by the next model, the F4, logically. And they started putting that on there, and you see that on the Grumman or on the Hellcat. You see that on this thing, but you won't see it here. But maybe in the future we'll get another one, and I can work that out.
Cool. Well, that'll be interesting when we get to that point moving forward. Brennan, thank you very much for going over this model. Let's kick things over to Landon now and talk a little bit more about the pilot minifig that is included with this kit. All right, so we got a plane, so obviously we got to have a pilot. Wake Island Marine. Take it away, Landon.
Yeah, Marine's pilot, similar in a lot of respects to kind of their Navy counterparts. We had this overall jumpsuit, early war. Again, this is kind of like a tropical environment, so it's more of a lightweight jumpsuit that he's wearing. Simple uniform, not a ton of gear, just so he's not overheating in that cockpit, I guess. Parachute harness, and that is over top of like a brand new life vest artwork that I put together. Again, another early war life vest that would complement that. They're flying over the ocean. They got to have just some flotation equipment with them in the event that they go down. But Again, sort of similar, some more similarities to their Navy counterparts with the configuration of all that. Pistol holster on the side, finishing that up with just some generic boots. Again, a simple figure.
Yeah.
But I think given the early war nature of that, they were learning a lot of things early on, and so I think that kind of they didn't have all the innovations of like later war pilots. Just not all the equipment was quite there. So. But nonetheless, an interesting piece, I think, in that transitional pilot collection, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree. Nice update to a figure, goes well with this, and obviously would be relevant in several other kits that could potentially rear their heads as well. So that's cool to see, and thanks for going over that.
Yeah. Simple figure, but I think it goes. It's meant for this kit, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoy this.
Yeah. Thanks for talking through that. So this has been the Designer Studio episode for the Wildcat from Wake Island in World War II for our 1941 theme. Thank you very much for watching.